Have you ever been told not to do something, and suddenly, it's all you can think about? Thousands of years ago, a woman faced that exact same test. The gods gave her everything. Beauty that made men forget their names. A voice like the first rain after drought. Hands that could turn clay into longing. They called her Pandora, all gifted. And they meant it as a curse. She arrived in the world of men carrying a single object. A jar, ancient, sealed, heavy with something she couldn't name. Zeus himself, king of the gods, had pressed the lid shut. And when Hermes placed it in her hands, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Keep it closed," they said. That was all. No explanation. No warning of what lived inside, just keep it closed. Now tell me something. If someone handed you a sealed jar and told you never to open it, how long would you last? A week? A day? An hour? Pandora lasted longer than most of us would like to admit. She carried it carefully. She set it in the corner of the room, and then she tried to go on with her days. But the jar was always there. In the morning, when the light hit it at a certain angle. At night, when the house was quiet and her thoughts weren't. It sat in the corner of every room she entered, even the ones she wasn't in. Because that's what sealed things do. They don't just sit there. They speak. Not in words, in weight, in the specific, unbearable gravity of the unknown. She didn't open it because she was careless. She opened it because she was human. And what came out next would change the world forever. In Greek mythology, moments like this don't just happen. They've been building for a long time. And long before Pandora, before the jar, before anyone was told what not to do, there was a powerful being who defied the gods for the sake of humanity. His name was Prometheus, a titan, one of the ancient ones who existed before the Olympian gods reshaped the world. Not quite a god, not human either. And yet, he cared for the fragile lives below. In those early days, humans didn't last. They froze, they starved, with no tools, no warmth, no way to fight the dark. While the gods looked at humans and saw weakness, small, mud-spattered creatures doomed to brief and forgettable lives, Prometheus saw something else, because he was the one who had shaped them with tenderness, from earth and clay. And what he saw didn't leave him. Prometheus couldn't look away. It felt personal, like a father watching his children suffer. So Prometheus did the unthinkable. He made a decision that would cost him everything. He climbed to Olympus. He stole fire from the forge of Hephaestus, the sacred flame that belonged to the gods alone. He hid it inside a hollow fennel stalk, carried it down the mountain, and placed it in human hands. And with fire came everything. Warmth, cooked food, metalwork, medicine, the ability to gather after dark and tell stories, to be, for the first time, something more than prey. Civilization itself was born in that stolen flame. Zeus saw it. And Zeus was not merciful about being defied. Prometheus was seized, chained to a rock at the edge of the world, far from the people he had tried to help, far from anything that could answer back. And then came the punishment. Every morning, an eagle, sent by Zeus himself, would descend and torment him. And each night, because he was immortal, his body restored itself. Day after day, century after century. But punishing Prometheus was not enough. Zeus wanted to punish humanity too, not with fire or flood, not yet. He wanted something more elegant, more permanent. He wanted to give them a gift. So he summoned Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, and gave him an order. Build a woman, not born, built. Sculpted from clay and water, shaped with a craftsman's precision and a god's intent. Then the others came. Aphrodite breathed beauty into her. Athena gave her skill and cunning intelligence. The Graces adorned her with gold jewelry. The Hours crowned her with spring flowers. And Hermes, the trickster, the messenger, the god who moves between worlds, gave her the final gift. A nature that was curious, and a heart that could not leave things alone. They named her Pandora, all gifted. Every god had contributed. Every gift was also a weapon. She was, in the most literal sense, too good to resist. She was sent to a man named Epimetheus, brother of Prometheus. Now, Prometheus had warned him, explicitly, clearly, with the kind of certainty that only comes from someone who has already seen how this ends. Never accept a gift from Zeus, he had said. Never. Epimetheus remembered the warning. And then he saw Pandora. His name in Greek means afterthought, the one who thinks only after it is too late. He accepted her without hesitation, without question, with the particular blindness of someone who wants something badly enough to forget everything they know. She came with a jar, ancient in a way that felt older than the gods themselves. Its surface was carved with figures too worn to identify, as though whatever was inside had been imprisoned so long. It had worn the outside smooth with wanting out. It came with the same instruction the gods had given her. Keep it closed. Life continued. Pandora learned the rhythms of the mortal world, its smallness, its warmth, its particular tenderness. She cooked. She wept sometimes at things she couldn't explain. She loved Epimetheus with the genuine feeling that surprised even the gods who had built her. But the jar. It was always the jar. She would find herself standing before it in the afternoon quiet, her hand on the lid without remembering walking there. She told herself she only wanted to look, that she wouldn't actually open it, that wanting to know and knowing were different things. They are not different things. Not for her. Not for us. We don't know exactly when. Hesiod, writing in 700 BCE, the oldest source we have, doesn't linger on the moment of decision. He simply tells us, she opened it, and everything came out, all at once. Disease, sorrow, jealousy, hunger, hatred, grief, all the invisible cruelties that had never existed in the world before. They poured out like smoke, like a held breath finally released, dispersing into the air before she could grasp a single one. She slammed the lid shut. Too late. The world was already different, already heavy with things it had never carried before. She stood there in the wreckage of the moment, and she looked at what she had done. And then she noticed something still inside, something that had not escaped. At the very bottom of the jar, beneath all the darkness that had fled, something remained. Still, quiet, warm in a way that was hard to explain. Elpis. The Greeks called it Elpis. We translate it as hope. But here is where the story gets complicated and surprising, because Hesiod himself, in the same poem, calls Elpis empty. He calls it no good. He places it in the jar alongside the evils, not separate from them. Was hope left behind to comfort us? Or was it left behind to trap us, to keep us enduring suffering we should simply walk away from? That question has no clean answer. It didn't 2,700 years ago. It doesn't now. And that is precisely why this story has survived. Pandora closed the jar, but the story didn't end, because what drove her to open it is still operating right now inside you. In 2016, two researchers at the University of Chicago, Christopher Z. and Bowen Ruan, published a paper in Psychological Science. They named it deliberately the Pandora Effect. They designed 4 experiments. In one experiment, participants were given a choice: do nothing, or press a button that might deliver an actual electric shock. They already knew it was unpleasant, and yet many pressed it anyway. Not because they wanted pain, but because they couldn't tolerate not knowing. They opened it because not knowing was, neurologically, more uncomfortable than knowing, even when knowing hurt. Pandora wasn't weak. She was running on the same hardware you are. In 2014, neuroscientists at UC Davis, Gruber, Gelman, and Ranganath, published research in the journal Neuron showing what curiosity actually does inside the brain. When we encounter an information gap, something we don't know but want to, the dopaminergic reward circuit activates. The same system involved in hunger, in desire, in addiction. Uncertainty doesn't just make us curious, it makes us crave. The sealed jar isn't a symbol of temptation. It is a perfect 2,700-year-old model of how your reward system works. And then there is the question of what remained. Hope. Carl Jung would have looked at this myth and seen something specific. The jar, dark, sealed, holding what we cannot face, is what he called the shadow. The part of the psyche we refuse to examine. The contents we keep locked away because looking at them feels dangerous. Opening the jar, in Jungian terms, is not a mistake. It is integration. Painful but necessary, the only path to wholeness. The evils that escape are not punishments. They are the truths about human experience that were always there. Grief, illness, conflict, death, finally acknowledged rather than denied. And what remains, hope, is not comfort. It is capacity, the strength to carry the truth without breaking. Psychologist C.R. Snyder spent decades researching hope, not as a feeling, but as a cognitive system. His hope theory, published in 2002, defines it as 2 things working together: agency, the belief that you can move forward, and pathways, the ability to find routes around obstacles. The elpis that stayed in the jar is not a warm feeling that everything will be fine. It is the part of us that keeps generating options when everything else has fled. So what do you do with this? First, name your jar. Most people have one. It might be an ex-partner's social media profile you keep checking even though it never makes you feel better. It might be a medical symptom you keep searching at midnight. A conversation you keep going back to, trying to figure out what they really meant. A door you keep opening that has never once opened well. The Pandora Effect is not ancient history. It is your Tuesday evening. Naming the pattern is not weakness. It is the beginning of agency. Second, pre-feel the consequence. C. and Ruan's research highlights how powerful this pull can be, and it points toward a strategy that can work against it, vividly imagining, in advance, in detail, the specific emotional pain you will feel if you open the jar. Not as a rational calculation. Instead, it should be a response you rehearse before the moment of temptation. Because in that moment, emotion has to be met with emotion. Third, understand what kind of hope you're carrying. There is wishful hope, passive, comfortable, the belief that things will somehow resolve themselves. And there is agentic hope, active, generative, the part of you that keeps asking, what can I do next? The first kind keeps you waiting. The second kind keeps you moving. Snyder's decades of research show that agentic hope, the ELPIS worth keeping, is one of the most consistent predictors of psychological resilience across cultures, across ages, across circumstances. It's not what you feel when things are going well. It's what you reach for when you're standing in the wreckage of the moment, looking at what's left. And the fourth thing, perhaps the most important, curiosity is not your enemy. The myth may condemn Pandora for opening the jar, but science reveals something deeper. The same human drive, the pull toward the unknown, is the one that has driven us to learn, explore, create, and connect. The question is not how to kill your curiosity. The question is how to direct it. Ask yourself, before you open the next jar, is this curiosity serving your growth, or is it feeding your anxiety? They can feel almost identical in the moment. Learning to tell them apart, that is the work. Pandora stood in that room with an empty jar and a world that would never be the same. History has not been kind to her. For centuries she was blamed, the first woman, the foolish one, the one who let everything in. But blame is the wrong lens. She was handed a sealed container, with no explanation, no context, and told to carry it alone, in silence. And she was human enough to need to know. So are you. So are all of us. The question Pandora's myth has been asking for 2,700 years is not, why did she open it? The question is, what do you do when knowing will cost you, but not knowing feels worse? What's the jar you keep returning to? The one you suspect may hurt you, but still feel compelled to open. Leave it in the comments. You might find you're not alone. This is Mythos Mirror, and we have only just begun.